Welcome to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications, your source for lobbying, compliance, ethics, campaign finance, and election news from across the country. I am Joe May. I have with me one of our experts. Nola, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Nola Werren, Assistant Director of Compliance Services, and I am here today to talk about state pay-to-play laws.
What is pay-to-play?
The phrase pay-to-play can mean different things to different people across many different industries. For our purposes, pay-to-play refers to the practice of awarding contracts to businesses that make political contributions to public officials who are in a position to award such contracts. Those businesses having or seeking contracts with state or local jurisdictions pay by making political contributions in order to play by obtaining government contracts.
So, pay-to-play laws do what exactly?
The ultimate goal of pay-to-play regulations is to prevent corruption or the appearance of corruption in the awarding of public contracts. The government wants to see the nexus or the linkage between the awarding of public contracts and the making of political contributions. In the past several years, there has been an increase in the number of jurisdictions enacting contribution reporting requirements for corporations seeking government contracts. Currently, there are pay-to-play laws in at least 27 states and numerous cities and counties. In a majority of jurisdictions, these disclosure laws cover not only contributions by the business entity itself, but also personal political contributions by the business entity's officers, directors, partners, senior management, and possibly their spouses and dependent children. In Pennsylvania and Kentucky, all employees are covered in the instance of a no-bid contract. And while some pay-to-play laws only include non-competitively bid contracts or contracts over a certain monetary threshold, other pay-to-play laws cover all contracts, including renewals and amendments to existing contracts.
How do pay-to-play laws work?
Pay-to-play laws can generally be broken down into three categories. First, there are the disclosure states, where a contractor needs to disclose its political contributions and, in some instances, their contracts as well. The goal with the disclosure states is transparency, so information about a contractor and its political activity is publicly available. The second category of pay-to-play states is what I call restriction states. In these states, there exists some type of restriction, if not an outright ban, on contractors making political contributions. The restrictions can be on the amount of permissible contributions or the value of the contract. The third category is a hybrid of categories 1 and 2. This is when a state has both pay-to-play restrictions and pay-to-play disclosure.
Where are we talking about?
Let's look at a couple of examples. Take Maryland, for instance. Maryland is an example of a disclosure state. In Maryland, a contractor can make as many political contributions as it wants, subject to state campaign finance limits, of course, and there are no pay-to-play restrictions, but virtually everything must be disclosed. In Maryland, a corporation must register and report if it has, number 1, a single contract with a single state or local governmental entity involving cumulative consideration of at least $200,000. Number 2, a registered lobbyist, or number 3, both a qualifying contract and a registered lobbyist, and makes contributions of $500 or more in the aggregate per recipient. Contributions include those from the corporation, its PAC, and personal political contributions by its officers and directors. If a corporation has qualifying contracts or a registered lobbyist, a registration and report must be filed even if there are no contributions. Reports are due May 31st and November 30th, covering the immediately preceding 6-month period. If contracts are reported, the following information must be disclosed: the level of government, such as county, local, or state, the name of the government agency, the nature of the business, the amount of the contract award date, the contract anticipation start date, and the contract anticipation end date. So as you can see, Maryland is very much a disclosure state. The law recently changed effective July 1 of this year, and the state now requires those entities contracting with the state to list its beneficial owners and its resident agent in Maryland. Now let's take a look at a hybrid state, a state that has both pay-to-play restrictions and disclosure requirements. New Jersey is a good example of this, and honestly, you cannot have a discussion about pay-to-play without talking about New Jersey. It was one of the first states to enact a comprehensive pay-to-play law. We could devote an entire podcast solely to New Jersey pay-to-play, so I am just going to discuss some highlights of the law. For state contracts generally, the restriction portion of the law provides that no business entity which agrees to any non-competitively bid contract or agreement with the state for supplies or services with a value exceeding $17,500 may contribute more than $200 in the aggregate to a candidate for governor or lieutenant governor. As for the disclosure portion of New Jersey's pay-to-play law, a business entity must file the Form BE if it, number one, makes contributions of $200 or more in the aggregate per election or per calendar year, depending upon the recipient. And number two, has contracts of more than $50,000 in the aggregate with the state or its political subdivisions. Contributions include those from the corporation, its PAC, subsidiaries, principals, officers, directors, and their spouses. If there are qualifying contracts but no contributions, a short form report must still be filed. Reports are due every March 30th, covering the preceding calendar year. If there are reportable contributions, then details of all the qualifying contracts must be disclosed. These include the contract ID number, the contract date, the name of the contracting public entity, the type of public entity, the address of the public entity, a description of goods, services, equipment provided, or property sold, the contract amount received during the previous calendar year, and whether or not it is a no-bid contract. So I think it is fairly obvious to conclude that the pay-to-play laws in Maryland and New Jersey are very intricate and nuanced. And in my opinion, this is representative of most of the pay-to-play laws in the states and localities.
Are there any other states you would like to talk about?
In some jurisdictions, the pay-to-play law is industry-specific. For example, in Louisiana, the pay-to-play law applies to contributions from individuals who hold licenses or permits to conduct gaming activities on a riverboat and in casinos. In Florida, the pay-to-play law only applies to contributions from law firms, investment banks, and credit underwriters.
What else do we need to know?
Another aspect of pay-to-play are the blackout periods. This is when, during a certain period of time surrounding the contracting process, no political contributions can be made. For instance, in Illinois, a prohibition on contributions is in effect for those with pending bids and proposals during the period beginning on the date the invitation for bid or request for proposals is issued and ending on the day after the contract is awarded. In closing, I want to touch on the consequences of violating pay-to-play laws, which can, in some cases, be severe. Damage to the company's reputation is virtually guaranteed when a violation occurs. In addition, penalties include monetary fines, voiding of contracts with the state or municipality, debarment from future business, and criminal sanctions when repeated or knowing violations occur. As such, it is a good rule of thumb to make certain that before you make a political contribution, you take the time to see if there is a pay-to-play law that could impact your ability to move forward with the contribution or otherwise risk a pay-to-play violation.
Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today, Nola.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. For more news, visit LobbyComply.com. To learn more about how we can guide you along the road to compliance, visit stateandfed.com.